Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Jim Jorgenson, and today I'm joined by Visante CEO Amick and Visante Chairman Steve Rao, and we're going to talk about Visante's top 10 forces shaping pharmacy in 2026. And this is always a really fun session with some great information for pharmacy and C-suite leaders. So welcome, Amy and Steve.
Thanks, Jim.
I want to emphasize, though, that this episode is for anyone shaping the future of a health system, not just pharmacy leaders, but also CFOs, strategy leaders, operations leaders, and executives responsible for growth and margin. Really, because pharmacy quietly influences up to half of a health system's margin, yet it's still treated like an operational function in most organizations. And in Visante's 2026 Top 10 Forces report, one theme keeps showing up. Pharmacy is becoming a strategic growth platform, whether health systems are ready or not. And we're going to highlight three forces today that signal a fundamental shift in how pharmacy should be viewed, funded, and integrated. So let's start with some brief introductions and bios for people that might not know you two. Let's go Amy first, then Steve.
Sounds good. Jim and Steve, it's great to be with you today. I have the honor of serving as the CEO of Visante, and I think this is my first ever call I've been on where I am a present CEO and I'm on the phone or on the call or on the podcast with two prior CEOs as well. So excited that I have been able to succeed Steve in this, and Jim, before that, you held the CEO chair at Visante. So fun to be with the three of you guys today. By way of background, I've been in the healthcare industry for 30 plus years. I have always been on the vendor side of things. I help health systems and providers figure out how to provide a higher quality of care, better operational excellence, or improve the financial well-being of their institution. Before joining Visante, I served as the CEO of Aspirion. Before that, I was at MedAssets, Allscripts, Immodal, Microsoft, and I like to say that I grew up at Cerner a long, long time ago.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, Steve Rao. I have been blessed with a great career in pharmacy and healthcare. I've spent the majority of my career on the health system side, where the majority of my career was spent as the pharmacy executive at the University of Wisconsin Health, where I was responsible for all aspects of the pharmacy enterprise across the system. And in that role, I particularly enjoyed having an opportunity to be entrepreneurial and bring that entrepreneurial spirit to the organization, and enjoyed working with many talented and passionate team members to establish new pharmacy programs that improved the care of patients and drove strong financial value for the organization. And in that role, I also had the opportunity to spend a lot of time working closely with pharmacy students and administrative residents, and serving in a variety of state and national pharmacy organization leadership roles, where I made hundreds of great lifelong friends in pharmacy who shared a common cause of striving to advance our profession to make healthcare better. In early 2020, I made a major career shift and made a great decision to join Visante to work with you, Jim, to help lead our health system division. And from 2020 to 2024, we experienced tremendous growth through establishing many long-term partnerships with hospitals and health systems to positively transform healthcare through pharmacy. I then transitioned to the CEO role at Visante in early 2024, and most recently into the chairman role of the company.
Excellent. Thank you. That was one of my best moves ever, Steve. So we're really happy you made that choice.
Thanks, Jim.
Maybe to start out, can you give our audience some background on the Top 10 Forces report? What is it? Why do you do it? And maybe how do people use it?
Sure, I'll start with that, and then maybe Amy can lend her perspective as our new CEO. But our goal for the top 10 has always been and continues to be to help health systems achieve success in the year ahead through sharing what we see as the top opportunities to drive value through pharmacy. At Visante, we partner with over 150 health systems annually to help them accelerate financial and operational value through pharmacy. And through these partnerships, we see many themes in terms of challenges and headwinds facing health system leaders. And we also see a lot of successes and innovation as well along the way. So based on those experiences, each year we author the top 10 into easily digestible articles to help pharmacy leaders stay focused on the top priorities that we know, if properly executed upon, are going to deliver optimal growth and value for the health system. And one thing we see repeatedly is when health systems invest in pharmacy as an enterprise growth engine and include pharmacy at the strategy table in the organization, great results are achieved in terms of organizational financial performance, as well as patient and provider experience and outcomes. Thus, the top 10 provides advocacy and strategy to help pharmacy leaders view pharmacy and health systems as a strategic asset to help drive transformational change and achieve organizational goals. And in terms of how we see and hear about people using the top 10, I think it's primarily in two ways. First, the top 10 provides a great framework for health system pharmacy strategic planning efforts. And second, it's leveraged to help pharmacy executives communicate important content to the C-suite to help flip that conversation internally from looking at pharmacy as a cost center to a value driver for the organization. And Amy, would you care to maybe share a few words about how we've refocused the top 10 slightly this year since you've joined the company?
Absolutely. Well said overview of the top 10. Something we've noticed, in particular, a big spike in 2025 as we published our list a year ago, is that the viewership of this content and the articles in our top 10 list has expanded substantially. And most notably, the readership has gone from what historically was very heavily consumed by pharmacy leadership and pharmacy innovators to where in last year we saw tons of chief financial officers, chief strategy officers, chief innovation officers, CEOs, and a much broader set of executives who are reading and engaging in the articles and the discussions associated with the top 10 list. And so we take that as a very real sign that the role of pharmacy is absolutely changing in the healthcare enterprise. For a long time, health systems pharmacy was led by pharmacy. But that's beginning to change in pretty radical ways where you're seeing the CFO, the CSO, the innovation officer, the CEO at the table partnering hand in hand with the chief pharmacy officer, trying to establish and design the right strategy and run the right progressive plays to transform pharmacy and the overall health of the health system. So as we see that shift of a broader audience being really interested in this content, we've reshaped the 2026 materials to more directly address to that full set of constituents that like to consume this content at this point.
That's great. And just reading through the report, there's way more information in there than we can get to in the time we have. But maybe you can give us a rundown and brief overview of the 10 topics you selected for this year's report.
Sure.
Why don't you take that one? Yeah.
Yeah, happy to. And with 10 topics, I'll be as brief as I can to answer that question. But Jim, thanks for asking that because I believe this year's top 10 is our best ever. And this year's themes, as you mentioned earlier, are clear. Pharmacy is no longer just a clinical service or cost center. Pharmacy in health systems is central to enterprise growth, to revenue strategy, to provider and patient engagement and experience, and to long-term health system sustainability. So while we only have time to focus on 3 of the articles today, I believe the other 7 are equally inspiring, and I highly suggest that pharmacy and senior leaders take the time to read all 10 and leverage them to drive their focus on growth in 2026. So during today's podcast, we'll dive into 3 of the 10, which include number 1, moving pharmacy from a cost center or an operational function to a strategic growth engine for the overall organization. Second, pharmacy's role in enterprise ambulatory success. And third, moving beyond the pharmacy plateau to unlock pharmacy value. And as I mentioned, I think the other 7 articles are very exciting topics that we also recommend serve as a focus for leaders in 2026. I like to say there's a little something in the top 10 for everyone. And the other 7 articles dive into the following topics. 1 is scalable entrepreneurial revenue growth opportunities. Second, investing in pharmacy talent and leadership structure. And it's unfortunate that health systems today are facing a critical shortage of pharmacy leaders at the exact same moment when pharmacy value opportunities is accelerating and reaching new heights. Third, we explore a smart approach to AI in pharmacy, separating the hype from impact. Fourth, we have an article focused on pharmacy metrics and KPIs that we recommend be integrated into the executive scorecard to reinforce pharmacy's value to the organization. Fifth, we have an article focused on pharmacy supply chain and really trying to differentiate that from traditional hospital supply chain, including why pharmacy-led medication supply chain governance drives optimal value. Sixth, we have an article focused on medication medical benefit revenue cycle management to maximize organizational net revenue performance. And seventh, an article focused on what pharmacy leaders really want to say about challenges in 26 that they're facing, with the focus on opportunities to improve cross-functional collaboration.
I love it. Maybe let me tack on to that. When we think about the three that we're going to focus on diving in today, there are two themes that are very strong in across those three articles. First of all, highlighting the very real complexity and increasing complexity of what's happening in pharmacy today. But also, hand in hand with that, what you'll hear coming through in these articles is the criticality of collaboration across the health system and across the enterprise in order to work in partnerships to really navigate the complexities and to optimize performance, just given how dramatically and radically the pharmacy space, in particular, the acute care pharmacy space, is changing in our industry.
Excellent. So let's dig in a little deeper on those three sections, and let's start with the foundation. The idea that pharmacy has to move from the basement to the boardroom. And in that first article, you talk about pharmacy as a growth engine, and you do note that pharmacy is no longer a cost center. It's one of the most underleveraged growth assets in the health system. Yet most organizations still manage it tactically and not strategically. So tell us a little bit more about where you're going with that point.
Absolutely. When you use the term basement to the boardroom, Jim, a visual comes to mind for me. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit one of our clients, and we started by a tour in their legacy pharmacy, which happened to be at their flagship hospital and happened to be in the basement. And later in that day, we sat down for an all-afternoon strategic roadmap workshop. And in that workshop, we actually saw physical diagrams of two new retail pharmacies that this health system is building, as well as diagrams and pictures of several infusion clinics that are being proposed to be built throughout the community. And so your reference of this shift from pharmacy from the basement to the boardroom is just relating to me because even physically, often the initial pharmacy and health systems is in the basement, right? And it's not just shifting to the boardroom, but I'd also characterize, and you'll see through the articles that it's really shifting from the basement actually out to the community with with an opportunity for a much greater reach than historically was taken in this space. So I think the physical footprint expansion that we see in pharmacy really links to the shift in role of the pharmacy for the health system. Historically, pharmacy leaders have often been measured on cost, compliance, and safety. They're all critical, but they're not strategic game changers. And what we see in today's reality affords a pharmacy the opportunity to be a massive growth lever and revenue generator and margin expander for the health system. And so this article really highlights the importance of the chief pharmacy officer's intentionality with the chief strategy officer on identifying and driving intentional transformational change.
That's right, Amy. And this isn't about adding more work to pharmacy in terms of developing a stronger partnership with the chief strategy officer. It's rather about recognizing the work that pharmacy is already doing and connecting that work better to enterprise strategy and goals. So the question no longer should be, should pharmacy be at the strategy table, but rather, can we afford for pharmacy not to be at the strategy table? Health systems that make that shift with getting pharmacy more engaged with strategy, they start asking some questions a little bit differently that leads to significant value. They ask, where is margin being created or lost as it pertains to pharmacy? Where are we experiencing patients in business leaking out of our system? And where can we better use pharmacy to accelerate growth instead of slowing growth?
All the right questions. Those are spot on. Health systems with a well executed and an impactful ambulatory pharmacy strategy can drive 25 to 50, sometimes even above 50% of that health system's margin. I mean, that is transformational. That is huge. The impact that's possible by having a fantastic pharmacy program, in particular in the ambulatory space, is tremendous. And that kind of impact isn't achieved by accident. It's actually achieved by very intentional partnerships and strategy and working collaboratively across the health system to drive change and new impact.
So,
I agree with Amy 100%. Most forward-thinking systems are starting to build strong chief strategy officer, chief pharmacy officer partnerships to better align pharmacy with entrepreneurial growth, with system integration and financial sustainability. And doing that often helps the overall organization to tap into pharmacy as a key business driver like never before, whereby specialty pharmacy and ambulatory infusion growth gets combined with 340B, revenue cycle optimization, and even establishing advanced in-house PBM strategies, offering scalable pathways for tremendous growth and better care for patients. Thus, when you read this article, it explains pretty clearly the ever-expanding roles and priorities of the modern health system chief strategy officer and dives into strategies pharmacy executives can leverage to foster a stronger relationship with their chief strategy officer and the power that this relationship can bring to advancing the pillars of success in the organization, being financial sustainability, organic growth, transformation, and even system alignment and systemness.
so once pharmacy earns that strategic seat, I think the next question becomes, where does it matter most? And as Amy just alluded to, that would seem to be ambulatory care. Skinny, can you talk a bit more about the key drivers you're seeing there?
Sure. I'll start out with that one. And as we all know, healthcare is evolving rapidly with care shifting beyond the walls of the hospital and revenue following suit. Thus, every health system is expanding ambulatory care. But unfortunately, many are still doing this without a clear strategy to guide their ambulatory pharmacy footprint and growth in that area. And that's where the cracks in the foundation start to show. Without such a strategy, you see revenue leakage, fragmented patient experience, and lost patient lifetime value the organization could be achieving. So I like to say that pharmacy is the connective tissue that, if invested in properly, can make ambulatory growth financially sustainable for the organization into the future. And in this regard, there are two very significant near-term pharmacy ambulatory growth engines that every health system should be investing in strongly: specialty pharmacy and in an ambulatory infusion infrastructure with multiple sites for infusion care to be provided. And these are not side programs anymore. They are core ambulatory pharmacy infrastructures that help health systems more holistically manage patients across all care settings and also bring significant provider efficiencies and financial growth for the organization.
I love it. Maybe let me layer on there. Simply put, systems that leverage pharmacy as a key lever in their ambulatory strategy are going to absolutely create more value for the health system, for their patients, and for their community. The volume of ambulatory prescriptions and the corresponding amount of economic impact of ambulatory prescriptions across the United States in entirety that leak outside the health system delivery network is absolutely staggering. And with the shift of both more care to the ambulatory setting plus the escalation of drug costs, this only increases the economic lost opportunity every single time a script leaks out of the system. Today, far too often a prescription is filled by an entity outside the health system. Capturing that volume or recapturing that volume within the health system is a critical opportunity to improve the financial health of the health system. And specialty pharmacy and infusion are the two strongest opportunities to go after that recapture.
Well said, Amy. Plus, filling those specialty prescriptions in-house through the health system doesn't only drive significant revenue and margin growth for the organization, It also supports continuity of patient care, improves, as we mentioned, patient and provider convenience, and ultimately enables better health outcomes, particularly for patients with complex chronic conditions. And as you mentioned, can't forget about ambulatory infusion, which today presents, I believe, a similar opportunity for health systems that specialty pharmacy presented about 10 years ago. Expanding ambulatory infusion services within the health system to include home infusion and pharmacy-based ambulatory infusion suites helps health systems respond to payer side of care strategies that are currently significantly negatively impacting the organization's bottom line. And then health systems can start to reclaim high margin infusion care business that's currently leaking out to external infusion providers. Often we see organizations having up to 10 to 20 million in lost annual contribution margin as a result of that infusion business that's leaking outside the organization to independent infusion providers.
Excellent points. Let me ask you though, what happens when health systems do everything that you just mentioned, but still feel like they've hit a ceiling and realize they still have untapped value? What's it really going to take to continue to see growth and to fully unlock that pharmacy value proposition?
I'll go first on this one. I think first, making you hold yourself accountable for the opportunity in front of you is a really big deal. It is easy to get lulled into thinking that a meaningful improvement to date, like perhaps launching a home infusion program or expanding your specialty pharmacy, is sufficient. While you might have gotten a meaningful gain for your organization by doing that, it's probably not enough. It's rarely enough. And it's also easily get distracted by how many other responsibilities are on the plates of hospital leadership. The reality is that factors like shifting regulations, emerging competition, shifts in consumer and patient behaviors, change in drugs, formularies, and drug costs, and other market shifts, they are real and they are rampant. And so, what made a strategy exceptional 2 years ago and might have been implemented according to world best practice 2 years ago, that strategy is likely insufficient today. And so the article really coaches on continual critical eye needed, where you are consistently looking into your operations to find the next wave of performance improvement. And often that's not coming from an incremental improvement. It's actually coming from yet one more round of transformational change in the health system.
I agree, Amy. In terms of a practical example of that, optimizing specialty pharmacy on its own, we all know can create a lot of value. But if the strategy also entails integrating specialty pharmacy, ambulatory infusion, 340B, revenue cycle, with a comprehensive internal medication access strategy to operate all of those as a fully integrated, well-oiled unit, value will significantly compound, often to the magnitude of $50 to $100 million annually in improved annual contribution margin for health systems that do it right. So when that happens, this is where leaders start to see pharmacy not just as a department or cost center, but as a business unit with exceptional growth, responsibility, and accountability. And segueing that into a little bit more background on why we wrote this plateau article. This article discusses the importance of ongoing investment for pharmacy to remain a cornerstone of health system financial sustainability, not just in 2026, but beyond that. And we wrote about this because it's common that we partner with health systems that believe their ambulatory pharmacy program is already being fully optimized. But when we dig into the data, it tells a slightly different story. For example, we often see systems with just average results in specialty, ambulatory infusion, and 340B that have already seen impressive early gains of 40, 60, even $80 million in annual financial improvement as a result of those programs that have gotten started and out of the gate. But what we find is that when we dig into the data, the actual opportunity is often double or even triple what's currently being achieved. But the organization is not going to be able to recognize that additional opportunity without heightened focus and heightened investment in the programs. So To realize its full growth potential, pharmacy programs require adequate leadership, adequate staffing, dedicated physical space, modern technology, strong executive sponsorship, and often an outside partner who can help them stay laser focused on achieving the full potential. Almost always, when we find that a pharmacy's financial performance has plateaued, it's almost always due to pharmacy leadership being buried in the organizational structure too low, or a reluctance on the organization's part to provide adequate investments in continuing to grow pharmacy after they've had initial success. So underperformance or plateauing performance almost always means lack of awareness, lack of focus, and underinvestment.
We could keep going all day here, but we are at time. And I do want to thank you for providing the top 10 forces report to the professional community, and also for taking some time to talk about it on the podcast. But any last thoughts here before we wrap up?
Sure, I'll share a couple last thoughts and then turn it over to Amy to end up the conversation. So I think these three forces that we discussed today, they tell a single story. Pharmacy is becoming one of the most powerful strategic assets in healthcare when invested in and leveraged properly. The systems that win in 2026 and beyond will be the ones that better integrate pharmacy into growth, into ambulatory strategy, and into enterprise planning. And those that do it now are the ones that are going to be successful. So as you said, Jim, we've been able to scratch the surface here. Each of these forces is explored in a lot more depth in the full Top 10 series. And if this conversation has sparked questions about your own strategy, or even help provide more optimism about that strategy, we encourage you to explore the full list of articles, start asking different questions inside your organization, because the future of health system pharmacy isn't just about pharmacy. It's about improving overall performance and growth for the entire enterprise, thus advancing the care of the patients that you care for.
I love it. I was speaking with the CEO a few weeks ago from a large academic medical center in the Northeast. This organization is a longtime Visante partner. And as part of the conversation, she made a comment that was to the effect of, we really are a pharmacy with a health system attached. Now, this is a prominent academic medical center, well known in the nation. And for the CEO to characterize the organization as a pharmacy with a health system attached really caught my attention. It is a powerful statement, and it is just a key reminder to what we've talked about today. Health system is on the forefront. This health system is on the forefront of much of what we talked about today. They understand the criticality of pharmacy being in lockstep with the C-suite. They understand the intentionality needed to leverage a pharmacy strategy as progressive and use it as a massive strategic lever for the health system and for providing care. And they also understand that a health system should never rest. As one set of transformative outcomes are achieved, it's time to press oneself to think about what's next and to go after that next. And so the reality is that a transformative mindset in one's ambulatory pharmacy strategy should not be considered aspirational. It should be considered table stakes. And the concepts that we talked about today are very real. And while they're hard and they're complex to deliver, and they take alignment and collaboration and coordination, with the right mindset and with the right focus and the right intention, they certainly are yours for the taking, and something that can be of great value, not only to your health system, but to the community that you serve.
Amy and Steve, thanks again for sharing your insights today. And to dive deeper into the full Top 10 report, you can visit visante.com or just follow the link to the show notes when we post those. So thanks everyone for listening, and we look forward to having you back with us next time.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.